Welcome back to the BackCountry Pa podcast. I'm Cody, and this is episode 121. This one, we were in Illinois. This is the start of the Illinois trip. This is day 1 and 2. We are at B&D Outfitters in Pike and Calhoun County in Illinois. Scott, Mason, and Steve were great. Great guides, new friends that we made out there. It was just, man, hunting camp is how I would describe that week down there. We drove down there December 14th, Patrick and I. Ethan and his dad drove down, and then Tim met us down there as well. So we got down there. We set up the saddles. I set up my saddle, and then we just chilled back at the lodge. The lodge is awesome. It can sleep. I think it can sleep up 20 people. I want to say there's 2 bunks in each room. Great. There's a lot of showers. Oh, the meals are great. Home cooked meals every single day. Absolutely love it. But there's going to be 4 episodes. So this is the first one, recapping day 1 and 2. We talk about how Scott got started down in Illinois. He's a PA native. And then Mason and Steve are actually from PA as well. So we touch base on that information. Holy crap. I'm recording this on New Year's Eve right now. It's 12:05 and people are shooting off fireworks. Hopefully all you guys had a great New Year's Eve. Me and the wife just stayed home, just chilled. I drank a little bit, watched some of the college playoffs, and we watched Top Gun. Yeah, Top Gun is freaking great. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. But man, it was great. Great down there. 7 days is a long time to be down there, but it was fun. Very fun, exciting. Looking forward to go back there sometime. But I hope you guys enjoy this episode. The partners, go to Heated Hunts, use BCPA 5, save 5% on your order. Go to Forget Genetics, use code BackCountry Pa, BackCTRYPA. That gives you 20% off your entire order. Deer Age, look them up on Instagram. It's Wildlife Labs on Instagram. deerage.com/backcountrypa. Use code BackCountryPA, all capitals. That'll get you 10% off your first order, and you can get your deer aged. Hopefully you guys had a great 2022. Can't wait to hear some stories from 2022. We're going to have that coming up. And then also, there's still a little bit of hunting left in 2023. So let's start 2023 off with a bang. Other than that, guys, remember to keep hunting, keep fishing, keep tradition, and always enjoy the freaking process.
There was a group of friends from Pennsylvania that loved nature. They wanted to become better woodsmen,
I was laying on the couch with my wife, zooming in and out of all X.
anglers,
If you have a nice sized trout, they can give a fight, at least according to the book.
and outdoorsmen.
Basically the grocery store. Fresh groceries.
Stories turn into legends, and legends turn into traditions.
Very German.
This is the BackCountry Pa podcast.
Balls Deep Outfitters.
We got that recorded.
Yeah, is that on there?
Nice.
Good. Recap, and thus ends the day 1 recap.
You want to start off with the day 1 recap?
Okay, yeah, okay, we're going to do day 1 recap. All right, now moving on to day 2.
Basically.
we supposed to say something?
No, this is it. This is the podcast. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the B&D Outfitters Illinois trip.
Okay.
There you go.
Welcome, everyone. So, obviously, I can hear myself my own headphones, which is kind of weird. So we're at B&D Outfitters. We have Scott, Mason, and Steve, and it's Ethan, Jeff, Tim, Patrick, and myself. Pretty much day one. Does anyone want to put in what happened day one?
Not a damn thing. That's
Okay.
what happened, other than
All right.
wind and cold.
Yeah. Tim?
Had some dough, 6 of them, about 8 a.m., and then nothing else.
Yeah. Patrick?
I saw 3 doe at the stand that I was going to, and I was like, all right, this is a hot spot. And then I sat there all day, and then I saw something a couple 100 yards out, walking away from me. I don't mind it walking away from me, maybe just a little closer to like 20, 30 yards would have been good. But no, yeah, it wasn't bad. My feet were ice blocks, but I mean, that's on me. That has nothing to do with the deer or the outfit or anything.
The ice rocks today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's just. I think it's just my feet that are the problem.
I think you have bad circulation in your feet.
Cold feet.
Yeah.
I hope my girlfriend doesn't listen.
Anyway, so B&D Outfitters. Scott, how did it all happen? Like, when did it start? Because you are originally from PA. So what was that process of going from PA to come to Illinois and then starting this?
About 4 years ago, my uncle approached me and asked, would you be interested in doing this for a living? And any 21, 22-year-old is going to say yes. We did a lot of research. Pike County has always been historic for whitetails, just like Stuttgart, Arkansas for waterfowl. So you had the name. Going into this, when you have nothing to advertise, at least you had the name. We had researched a bunch of places. We looked at Rockville, Missouri, and then we found this place. It was a turnkey, at least it was supposed to be. Didn't end up that way. My grandfather and I, we drove out here a week after I graduated, and we redid the place, and the rest is history. So this is our 4th season. Next year's going to be our 5th season, so each year it keeps getting better and better.
Yeah, I mean, so when you say it wasn't turnkey, what needed to be fixed?
Well, when we arrived, there was an old man up the holler. His name was Chuck Guthrie. He actually holds the world record for Grand Slams and International Slams for turkeys. Doc passed away a couple years ago, and never met anybody here. We just rolled up to the driveway, and this guy comes down on a side-by-side, like 80-some years old, and goes, "Son, 2 things, vanilla and Listerine," and he drives away. And had no idea what he meant until I had my blazer, and my grandfather gets out, and we'd never seen buffalo gnats before, and you couldn't breathe. It was just black in the air. So we get up to the porch, and I'm like, this is awesome. I had never seen this place before. My uncle and I got it unseen. Mm-hmm. We bought it off the internet.
Oh.
Definitely do some research and visit where you're buying. But we got up to the door, and we couldn't get in. There was a key broke off in the lock. And my dad called, and we finally got in. My dad called, and he's like, "Scott, how is it?" I'm excited. I'm like, "Dad, it's freaking awesome. Like, this is great." Well, my grandfather's like, "Give me the phone." He's like, "Chris, this is horrible. It sucks. Bad. Very bad." So we had no plumbing. All the pipes were busted. Holes in the walls. Wallpaper coming off the walls. The entire lodge outside had no paint on it. The kitchen was destroyed. The dining room was destroyed. The bathrooms were destroyed. Dead raccoons, snakes. So we had a pretty big project.
Yeah.
So we stayed up in Pittsfield, which is about 45 minutes from here, for about 2.5 months in a hotel.
Okay.
And the thing around here is, like, you got to drive to Lowe's, which is an hour and a half. Mm-hmm. So we were going to Lowe's 3-4 times a week, which that burns right there 3 hours just driving, let alone get all your stuff. Then you get back here and you're like, oh, shit, I forgot this or I forgot that.
Right.
But, each year we keep improving, and you know, it's my baby, and I'm happy with it. And,
Yeah.
you know, it looks pretty good. It's clean, it's comfortable, food's good.
Oh, yeah.
So, but yeah, from day one, if you saw it then, I wish I would have took before and after pictures because it looks nothing like it does now. Zero.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you say turnkey, and the previous owner owned a high fence place in western Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So you know, at the time we had a sit down meeting with him out in Clarion, and he's like, "Oh yeah, like I'm going to give you our book of business and everything," and yeah, none of that happened. So we were basically starting from the ground up. So I remember the first year we had like 16 guys here, and that's what we had. So you know,
Wow.
it's definitely come a long way.
Yeah, so starting from the bottom and just building your way up, how do you find properties? That's one thing that I've been quite like asking myself in my head, like how do you find properties that you have access to that you can guide on?
You just do it kind of like you do back in Pennsylvania, like knock on doors and talk to the locals around here. Takes a long time to get the locals' trust. So knocking on doors, introduce yourself. You know, even if they tell you no, just keep going back and visiting with them. Because a lot of these farmers, even though they're going to tell you no, they're going to talk to you for a couple hours.
Okay.
And you know, they enjoy seeing you. They want to know you. Difference with me being out of state coming here is I live here all year round.
Right.
A lot of these other outfitters from out of state, they come in for deer season and they're gone right after.
Okay.
So like with coaching baseball and now having kids here, and you know, we live here, so
Yeah.
that makes a difference.
Your roots are here now, so it's going to make you stay 10 times longer.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Even though you like going home for PA.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I like going back to Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
No. This state, I'll tell you what, this state is so flat and it's so windy and I'm miserable.
We haven't got yet McCall yet.
Yeah, next week it's supposed to be negative, in the negative, like -4 I saw.
Yeah, -4, high of like 13 or something like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
No, thank you.
Yeah,
That
that's
was-
like takes us back to when we coyote hunted up in PA.
Yeah, and that was -3, and we got back home and it was like 15, and we were going outside in shorts and a t-shirt because it felt good.
Yeah.
We couldn't. I could not get warm today to save my life. I couldn't. I put extra layers on, and it was like I did nothing. I don't understand. The wind went this way, this way, this way. I was like, well, I'm glad I sprayed myself
Yeah.
with something because my scent is literally within a 10-mile radius at this point.
Yeah. So, Mason, you're from PA.
Yes, I am.
So, how did you get connected down here?
Well,
He says he met me at Harrisburg, but that
Yeah.
didn't happen.
And you're only
That
20
didn't
also.
Yeah, Scott knows he met me. He just easily forgets me. So even to this day, he just forgets about me most of the time. But I talked to Scott for a good 45 minutes at the Harrisburg show last year, originally looking to book a hunt with a buddy of mine. And plans fell through and all that. So I was following the Facebook page and eventually posted a listing looking for guides. So I messaged him on Facebook. He gave me his number. I called him right away, and it's history from there.
Wow. Like, so being a guide, do you have to get any certification in Illinois or because I don't know how that goes?
Well, Scott says there should be, but no. All you have to do is send in your driver's license. They'll do
Really?
a background check on you and that, and you'll get your guiding license with that.
Wow.
Yeah, like compared to Maine, like Maine has a guide school, and it's pretty tough because up there, like you're search and rescue also.
Oh, okay.
Out here in Illinois, to have an outfitter license, you can never have a game or fish violation, and that's basically the end of it. You know, you send in your driver's license, and you know I guess they do a background check. But
Yeah.
You get your outfitter license, and then all your guides, as long as everything comes back good, it's a free license. You could have as many as you want. So like when I was. So this year I became a resident. I was a non-resident for the longest time, even though I lived here, because I was still on my parents' health insurance. But I was paying $2,500 for a whitetail outfitter license, a non-resident, and $500 for a waterfowl guide license. And now it's $500 for whitetail and $200 for waterfowl.
Okay.
And then your guides are free; you just send them in.
Wow.
So you get their driver's license information, and that's it. You know,
Yeah.
you get a tag in the mail, and that's all it is.
Wow. That's pretty simple.
No, because I know in PA it's, you know, you have to go through, when you guide on, the only place you can guide in PA is Allegheny National Forest to be a guide there. And you have to go through a whole course to get your guiding certificate and even to guide for elk too. So I didn't know how their states work. Like that's interesting that all you do is send in your driver's license, and then you're pretty much, if you have no backgrounds, you pretty much become a guide.
Yeah, you're basically like on a mailing list.
Yeah. So how many properties do you have access to?
So right now we're about 23. Some of them we have subleased out this year.
Okay.
We're always getting new properties and giving properties away. And the first year I started, I had 3.
Oh.
So we've definitely come a long way with that. A lot of the problem down here is you can knock on 100 doors, you might get 1 maybe.
Yeah.
Everything has been leased out for the last 20 years to the same group of guys from New York or Pennsylvania. They have a sublease.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where we're at now. And something different this year is we had a ton of timber, and a lot of our repeat guys were like, hey, wish we had more timber. The timber's great. So we gave up some of our cropland this year, and then as you get towards this late season and early season, you kind of miss it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But next year we're going to go back to 50-50.
Okay.
But
all right.
This year was definitely learning in the timber.
Yeah.
Big woods for Illinois.
Yeah.
Big woods.
So is the piece that Patrick, Tim, and I were on, that's like the big woods?
That's
timber?
Huge woods for Illinois.
Yeah?
Yeah, huge.
Okay.
You're not going to find ground like that around here much.
Yeah, and that one is a new one that you just recently
got.
Yeah,
it was an outfitter who had it for like 20 years, and he gave it up, and I had to go and do an interview for it, go in front of a board because we're a nonprofit organization.
Okay.
End up getting it. We got on a 10-year contract, so that was pretty big. But yeah, it's a different kind of hunt.
Yeah.
You're talking 1,400 acres of just nothing but timber.
I mean, it's definitely part of that. Like, it reminds you of PA, honestly. Like, I mean, not up near the big woods like where my cabin's at, but like down Lancaster County, all that kind of stuff. Like, it definitely reminds you of that, like rolling hills,
It was impressive, like driving through the state, and like it was just all flat. And then, like, as soon as we got here, like as soon as we hit Pleasant Hill, like it was just like, oh, like, are we back in PA? Like, we just drove 12 hours to be back in PA. Like, it was interesting, like the contrast between the rest of the state.
Yeah, and that's like we have, so on 96, the highway, when you guys came in from Pleasant Hill, everything to the right, so to the west, is what we call the bottoms. It's all flat. It's all farmland. It's all Mississippi River bottoms. Everything to the left of it, to the east, is what we call the hill ground. Now, like where we're at, we're in Calhoun and Pike County. So you're between the Illinois and the Mississippi River. So that's what's also unique about this is you got the 2 rivers between us, and then you look at a typical Pike farm. At one time, you could take we have a farm, Bradshaw Farm, is 500 acres. It's probably 460 acres of corn. And then you got 40 acres of timber.
Yeah.
At one time, that was all timber. These farmers, they buy these properties, they knock every tree out of there. Then they doze it, they fill their ditches in, and they plant every ear of corn they can.
Wow.
If it was up to them, they would knock every tree if they could.
Yeah.
But that's the difference between Pike and Calhoun. Calhoun's more timber, more your haulers, your deep draws. You still got your crops, but it's majority timber. Pike is more flat, more crops, more bottom ground, so we're diverse in that way. You're not just hunting one type of,
right.
What's the word I'm looking for? Ground.
Right.
I
Yeah.
guess. You could either hunt timber, you could be in the bottoms, you could be on a big crop stand. You kind of, we have a little bit of everything. So
Yeah.
that's what's unique about out here.
Now, do you see do they go to acorns quite a bit, or not? Not really. They just mostly towards the crop fields, like the soybeans and corn.
This was really the first year we really hunted acorns because we've always hunted crops. So we got a bunch of timber this year, and that was the difference. Like the deer were in the acorns.
Okay.
And then the rut's the rut.
Yeah.
Pre-rut's pre-rut. The difference with our timber farms is we're holding deer 365 days a year.
Yeah.
A lot of our crop farms, it was all pass-throughs. Coming and going, you're seeing different bucks all the time, which is great because you're never blowing them out. Even if you pressure it a little bit harder, it's new deer coming and going. They don't live there.
Okay.
They're coming there to eat. They're going to just look for a hot doe through one of them fingers. But now you take like our timber pieces; those deer are there all year. You learn what ridges they're on. Acorns is basically what they got. This year was tough. We had a big drought.
Yeah.
Food plots didn't come in the way we wanted them to. So, we really the only food source we had was acorns.
Okay. All right. And primarily your kills, your harvest, were they over acorns this year?
I mean, we had early season was a little rough because 1,400 acres of timber.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, every blind squirrel will find a nut every once in a while, but 1,400 acres of acorns with you didn't see most of that property, but on the backside of the property, it's that thick. You're lucky if you can see 20 yards off of it.
Oh wow!
So just to pattern a deer in general, just off of the acorn patterns with all that bedding, early season was tough on that farm.
Yeah.
Which that's what Scott and I discussed during the season. Like, it might be slow early, but we're going to make our money off the rut and gun season off this property.
Okay.
But early season, what would you say most of our kills came off of, Scott?
Probably the clover, around clover.
Okay.
And in areas where you really didn't think, like there wasn't a lot of food source in those areas. You were kind of hunting transition areas almost. Because like Mason said, early season, it was still so green in that timber. You could be in a stand and you could be getting beat 20 yards and not even know it.
It's that thick. Yeah.
And it depended on what stand you were in or if you had your climber and you were moving around. But, yeah, we were getting beat a lot, I bet, and we didn't even know it, Now, like this year was different, too. We had a ton of misses,
That's
And can't shoot them for the guys, and, but everything from regular compounds to crossbow misses to dry fires first gun, like, it was like every time we'd get a call, like, I missed.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, that puts a damper on it.
We've missed some good deer this year. Some real good deer.
Yeah, the misses are the biggest part. Like, do you think because it was that thick, do you think that played a part in it?
Yes and no. Some situations, like we had a guy here for first gun, and we had this buck, beautiful buck, about 170, pushing 180. Had him on camera coming up a big draw. We knew he was living down there. So we had a stand at the top of that draw, but to the north. And we put him in there, and it was really weird. It's like the third day of first gun, so it's the last day of first gun. Get a call right at first light. So it was a father, a son, and their cousin. And they were kind of like in a triangle. They were probably, I'd say, 400, 350 yards apart. But with the terrain, they're covering different areas. So we get a call from the son. He's like, hey, I shot one, it's down, it's a good one. So I get out there. Steve and Mason are still back at the lodge thinking, hey, this is the only deer down so far. I got it. Just got it gutted. We had a client, Scott Moyer. He had killed out the day before. He was with me. We get the buck into the side-by-side, and the kid proceeds to tell me, hey, my cousin shot one and he got one down. So I'm like, oh, all right. So while we're getting in the side-by-side, we hear a shot. And I'm like, I look at the kid, I'm like, that's your dad. And I know his dad. He's hunting with us for a long time.
Yeah.
He's not going to pull the trigger on a deer if it's 140. He's looking like 160 or better. So I'm like, all right, here we go. So we meet up on the top, and the cousin's like, yeah, I shot a decent one. Like, it's nothing huge. Well, it ended up being a 152-inch 8-pointer. That's a big 8-pointer.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
So everybody's pumped about that. And the dad gets out to us, and he goes, guys, I shot a doe. Now, with your firearm tag, you either have an either sex tag. So you can either shoot a buck or a doe. Well, we're like, why'd you shoot the doe? So he was out west previous this year, shot a beautiful elk in New Mexico. He's got this muzzler. He's got up to like 400 yards. He's like, I have this buck at 80 yards, right? He's like, I can see the rack. He's a good one. But he's like, all I have is an ass shot. He's like, I'm not taking it. So he's like, I'm going to let the deer go. I'm going to see what he does. It was with a doe. So they get out. Now they're at 140 yards. And it's all honeysuckle. And he can see the two deer. Well, he shoots the deer in the back. Well, he shoots the doe instead of the buck. So he just burned his gun tag.
Yeah.
So we're like, dang. Like, all right. The buck's still alive.
Yeah.
So he goes to me. He's like, hey, I want to come back with my bow after I take everybody back to Alabama. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. So he comes back up, And it's the first night he's back up here. Get him in a climber. We push about, I'd say 120 yards out this logging room where he saw that buck and that doe where he shot. So I'm in the parking lot. Mason's in the parking lot. We're getting ready to pick people up. And he texted me early. Like, it gets darker in the timber sooner. And he's like, Scott, you got to come up here. So I'm thinking he's ready to get out because it's cold. He's from Alabama. They don't do good with the cold.
Just like Patrick.
So I get up there. He's out of his stand. He's out of his stand. And I'm like, what happened? He's like, I shot him. I'm like, what do you mean you shot him? He's like, yeah. He was like down over there and he's pointing. And I'm like, well, how far of a shot? Now he's got a Raven crossbow. This guy's hunted all around the country. He's a really good hunter. He's like 80 yards. I'm like, what? He's like 80 yards.
80 yards with a crossbow?
And I'm like, ooh. So it's getting, like, it's already dark at this point. I'm looking for first blood real quick, but I know what this buck looks like. So we have a local guy. He's a good friend of ours, Don. He's our tracker. So I'm like, this is what I think is the best option. There was no blood. I couldn't find any at the moment. So we get Don out and the next day. And he got there early. We waited till the frost got off the ground. It's easier for the dog to scent. Make a long story short, he didn't hit the deer. There was you couldn't find the bolt, no hair, no blood. And then about a week ago from today, that buck was back on camera. So that's awesome.
That's good.
But when you talk about, okay, so the gunshot, you're talking about brush kind of interfering with a shot. You got the brush on the gunshot. He shot the doe instead of the buck because he thought the buck was in the back.
Yeah.
So if there's no brush, he probably kills the buck. And then you take a 80-yard crossbow shot, which we don't recommend by any means.
No. No matter how fancy the crossbow is.
We got out there, me and the tracker, and we had him go back up in his climber to tell where he was at, and you couldn't even see him.
Oh, man.
I like playing golf. I had a pitching wedge, 150 yards.
Yeah.
This is like a 150-yard poke.
Oh, man.
So you're ranging. You could have hit a branch when you ranged that deer. Like when you shot, your bolt could have deflected off a branch, off the brush. So there's that same deer twice in less than a week apart. How being thick in that timber,
messes with you.
Messed it up.
I mean, that's like today when I was sitting in the saddle. I was ranging things and like I was ranging out to there's a beaver dam right where I was, and I was ranging out to see where like that tall grass was to see like how far it was, and I kept saying the first time I said 107, I was like, that seems like that. There's no way that's 107 yards, but somehow it was. And then I hit one twig and it would say 45. Like that's how big the difference is. Like you hit that one small little twig, it'll change it like 40 yards. Like it's absolutely crazy. And
back in PA, we have deer that have like a route that they always travel. Do you have that kind of stuff out here?
Yeah, so actually the one buck we killed during second gun ended up scoring 160. We had this buck basically on the entire property. Got him early, like the third week of October, he finally hit one of our cameras. I'm like, man, he's a really nice buck. Well, actually, where Tim's at, we learned about that area is there's a big thicket in front of Tim, and these deer are bedded down below that thicket, and they keep coming up that logging road. So we put Tim in there in his hang on, for this hunt right now. But during second gun, we put a guy down below where he's at because this buck was basically running a huge triangle. Yeah. It was just a matter of what day is he going to hit that point in the triangle. We have all three sides covered, but what time is he going to hit that point?
Well, I know during hunting season they get displaced everywhere, but usually they come back kind of like when you go and chase all your turkey away. Eventually they all group up again. Yeah. And the deer, I know in Pennsylvania they basically do the same thing. And where we're at, they have a loop that they run. And you could see them, and maybe 4 hours later you'd see them at the same place. Or, half a day or whatever, they come past there again.
Oh yeah, out here that's a little different. We don't really have that as much. Can't really tell you why. It doesn't seem like, you see that buck in the morning, then you see him again in the evening. I think a lot of these deer out here, I think majority of the time, either they're bedded down or during the rut. You know, there's so many, you know, the deer herd's a little bit different than Pennsylvania. So I think our numbers are more, and I think, you know, we have more hot does than a typical property in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So I think these bucks are cruising more. I think they're covering more ground.
Well, the reason I asked was because I saw a massive one today. If I see that son of a bitch at 4 o'clock tomorrow, he's dead. I'm going to be closer to him than what he thinks. So that's why I asked.
Well, since you brought that up, let's hear the story. Let's hear it.
Hear a story.
Yep.
Well, this is day 2.
Yep. Let's recap day 2.
5-day hunting trip. I'm the old guy. And Steve is my guide. These guys are good enough to accommodate me because I'm not a tree climber, and I don't like sitting up in a tree. I have a fear of falling out. So they actually put blinds, ground blinds down for me. And on top of that, it's been so windy that, you know, I get in my blind and I don't even have to wear all my clothes. So anyway, today was one of those exceptional days. I mean, I was sitting there and the wind was just blowing crazy, and all I could think of was Cody and Patrick are freezing, and
I was
thinking
fine.
of Ethan, and Ethan's up there like.
I was thinking of you too, Jeff.
Yeah. So anyway, today was one of those good days. Saw a lot of stuff, but that's why I was asking Scott about if these buck have a route or a loop or something, because there was a nice buck that was standing outside of my range, and he just would not come past the trees, and I thought, well, okay. If they have a loop, then maybe I'll see him again tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I know he was a big one. I just couldn't. He was hiding behind trees. I couldn't see exactly what he was, but his antlers were way above his ears.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, I mean, I know everybody. I was hoping everybody would at least see something today. All right, and apparently I was the only lucky one today. I was able to get a doe at 7:45 this morning.
Tonight.
And
just kidding.
well, it took that long to get it home. And I saw quite a few deer. Had a lot of fun today. But it was a good day for me anyway.
I heard there was something that happened in your blind.
Oh, I don't know where to start. I don't know where to start. Well, I got in there and I was trying to range find, and it was still too dark, so I couldn't get my numbers. And then I waited till it was light enough, and then I hit a couple trees, and okay, there's 40 yards, there's 50 yards. Okay, I'm good. And I looked out to the right, and there's all these branches and high weeds and stuff. And I was like, shit, I'm gonna have to figure out where I'm gonna shoot in between. And then finally, after it got light, I was like, no, I'm going to just reach out here and break a branch off and push the weeds down. And as soon as I got out of my chair, I looked, and here's this doe and a baby walking behind me. And I was like, oh, shit, I'm not even ready for this. So I sat back down, and she just meandered right past me, didn't even look at me or anything. And I was going to holler at her to stop. But, I thought before she gets over the hill, I'm going to take a shot at her and see what happens. And that's my doe story for today.
Well, congrats on the doe. She's a big one.
Yeah, she was. I was looking at her, and I thought, yeah, she looks. I mean, that's like a corn-fed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'd say she's probably 170.
Oh yeah.
Maybe something like that.
Yeah.
She's a nice doe.
Yeah.
So yeah.
There you go. First one on the board.
Yeah. Yep. I was hoping everybody else would at least see something today.
Yeah. Well, game plans are changing for tomorrow. Yep. Game plans are changing for tomorrow. Mason has an idea for us. Scott and Mason have an idea of what Tim, Patrick, and I are doing tomorrow, and we're going to get something else. That's for sure. Stay tuned for day 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah, I got to remember what day we're on.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's hungry.
I can sit there and talk.
I know. I like this thing.
I got Patrick on video running away.
Hello and welcome back to BackCountry Pa News. My name's Mr. America. Let's get into it. So this first one comes from GoErie.com. Hunters successful this fall, but violations weighed down game wardens too. This is a neat little article. That's a little different from some of the ones that we've done in the past. But basically, they went in and interviewed 4 different game wardens from across the state: Northwest, Northeast, Southeast, and Southwest. From the Northwest, they said that they noticed a lot going on with the fall turkey season. It's a beautiful day, but that the deer hunting was overly abundant in northern Erie County. Particularly in this region, however, they did notice that a lot of deer processing was becoming a problem because there were places closing, fewer and fewer places to go to, and the places that are still processing deer are getting overwhelmed. So they recommend that if you have the ability and the means, that you should learn how to process your own deer, if you're in those areas especially. Down in the Southwestern, they said that one of the biggest problems that they faced this year were an unusual number of mistaken kills, particularly with different antler restrictions and mistaking buck for doe or vice versa. So this was the biggest problem in the Southwest. In the Southeast, there were bears and turkeys that could be harvested with crossbows and bows in the southeastern areas, particularly around Philadelphia. And they also noticed usage of boats, largely to get to untouched areas there along the Delaware River. Very unique sort of situation that I think is really cool for the Philadelphia area. And in the Northeast region, particular focus on bear in that area. In the northeastern part of the state, hunters killed more than 400 bears in the early season, which is 30 to 40 more than last year. And they've been keeping their eyes out for some really large boars up there. They've seen them pushing about 500 to 600 pounds. Really neat article. Recommend that you go check it out. There's much more that they touch on in there, but that was a brief synopsis of the whole thing. GoErie.com. We'll have the link in the description for you. The second one comes from MeatEater.com, themeateater.com. 3 mistakes muzzleloader hunters make. Somewhere between a traditional rifle hunt and an archery hunt lives a muzzleloader hunt. It's a medium-range weapon for most folks, despite the outlier tinkerers who push serious high-caliber rifle range with their front stuffers. Muzzleloader is a really unique animal. I think it's very different depending on where you are, depending what state you're in, what region of the state. But it is very popular, and as we spoke before, there's a lot of different things that you have to pay attention to when it comes to muzzleloader hunting. Again, we're not going to go through the entire article because there's lots of unique little details, but I think it's a good one to go into. The first item that muzzleloader beginners should be focused on is range and trajectory. There's lots of options, lots of different combinations between pellets and powder and bullets, all defined by weight, grains, and you could try whatever you would like. But there are lots of different preferences that different muzzleloaders can have as well. So getting as much experience as you can with your muzzleloader, shooting at different ranges from 25 to 50 to 100 and even beyond, can be really helpful to determining how far of a shot that you can take and what your drop is going to look like when you're out there shooting that long shot.
The second thing you should be mindful of as a muzzleloader hunter is that these ranges that you're taking shots from should probably be closer to a bow hunting or a crossbow hunting range than they should be to a rifle range. Making sure that you have a good area to hunt in. There's going to be more pressure throughout the season. You're usually coming in late season with a muzzleloader, so you want to make sure that you get yourself set up in a good spot that's going to funnel the deer in, and make sure that you have a shot that's going to be, between 50 to 70 yards at most, maybe even get them in a little closer to 30 or 40 yards. With the muzzleloader, as long as you have your setup correct, the benefit of muzzleloader is you're shooting in the rifle style. You don't have to pull back like you would with a compound. And you'll have a little bit more range than you would with a crossbow, but you can still make sure that you have that nice close shot so that you won't have to worry about all these other variables that come into play when you're shooting a muzzleloader. The last thing this article points out is that it may be easy to get discouraged if you look at the hunter participation in the late season muzzleloader. Well, a lot of people don't participate in muzzleloader, so it must not be very successful to hunt during muzzleloader. But this is misleading. Not very many people muzzleloader hunt. So if you look at harvest data in your state, it's almost a certainty that numbers will be much lower than archery or general firearms seasons. The upside to that is that you're going to have a lot of the land to yourself, and you can find good bucks and have higher quality hunting because there are fewer competitors out there, and there's going to be much more land for you to spread out over, given that there's going to be less hunters out there in the field. Once again, I recommend that you go and check out the article. It's well written, and it gives some good discussion points, not all of which that I've spoken of here. And this last episode comes from Realtree.com. Iowa hunter shoots a booner after dogs, 8 people, and a farmer on a tractor clear the field. Max Mongrello even climbed down to help the farmer fix a fence and then shot the buck with just a few minutes of daylight to spare. This is Max Mongrello. He moved out to Iowa to pursue his dream of shooting a big booner buck and working for the hunting industry. He took this buck in November, right after Thanksgiving. It was 170 7/8 inches. This was in Iowa County, Iowa, and he did it with a compound bow. Really cool story. Went out and had an encounter with this buck last year, October 2021. Was behind the camera for a buddy of his. Buck was in 10 yards, but it was on the other side of a fence, the property that they were on, but so they had to let it go. And they waited the buck's return, but he just was coming back and forth and wasn't really making himself too well known. He was out sitting back in November, and a huge group of people and deer and dogs just flew out of the woods into the fields. He was in a ditch in a little bit of a gully between some of the fields. Had a really good spot, felt really comfortable with it, but just felt completely flushed out by all this activity in the field. Then the farmer came out and began pulling fence about 100 yards from him. He said, "Oh, that's it. I guess I might as well get done and just help this guy." So he got down, helped him out for a couple hours, and there was about an hour left of shooting time. So he went back up into the stand and waited for a little bit. A bunch of doe came out in front of him, and the big booner buck came out, made himself known. He took his shot at 35 yards. And the buck didn't make it out of sight. Really cool story. Again, recommend that you go check out the full article. Congratulations, Mr. Mongrello. Really great that you've followed your dream of going out and getting a job with the hunting industry, and also being able to pursue these deer in the fields that you've wanted to, and that you have good property and maintaining the relationships with the people out there whose land you hunt. That's really important for hunting as well. I want to thank you so much for joining me on this episode of BackCountry PA News. Remember to stay safe and keep your tradition.
Completely stupid. I gotta get the full look with like the binocs too, like.
The binocs.
Yeah, just. Hello. We're here in Illinois. Out here, just a couple of Pennsylvania boys out here for a good time.
About to go hang some stands, and Patrick wore the Crocs.
Maybe my shoes on a tree somewhere.
Hey Tim, you didn't wear Crocs.
No, I came prepared.
I mean, what did you expect from me, though? I mean, I have a history here, obviously.